Are you also confused like me on whether or not to believe in God? Stick around till the end of this video. I have an interesting exercise that you would like to see. So, there's a lot of narrative around the world now about whether or not there is a God, right? And it has changed in the recent past. It was very simple 50 or 100 years ago. The parents believed in something and then they passed that on to their children, and it went on from one generation to the other. Nowadays, though, there are so many people that are so vocal about the fact that they don't think that there is a God. And it gets so confusing because if you listen to these arguments, logically, they make a lot of sense. Logically, you will find people that will tell you why there is a God, and then you will also find people who will make a lot of logical sense and tell you why there isn't a God. And it gets so confusing then to decide what is it that we want to believe in. Now, let's talk about a few of these examples. There was this one experiment that I saw on Nat Geo. They got these bunch of 5 to 6-year-old kids, about 10 of these kids. And what they did was they showed them a room in which on one side, on the wall, they had put a big target, all right? And then they drew a line on the other end of the room, further away from the target. They drew a line there and they asked these kids to stand behind that line. And then they gave them a few soft toys. What they said is, try and hit the middle of that target with these soft toys. Every time you hit the middle, there's this box of chocolate in the room. So every time you hit the target, you can go pick one chocolate and eat. All right? And then they put these kids in the room, one by one, not all of them together, one kid at a time. They put the kid in the room and they left the room and let the kid play by himself or herself. Now, there were cameras in the room so that they could see and monitor what's going on, but the kids didn't know about the cameras. So they left the room, and what they saw is one by one, as each of these kids went inside that room trying to play this game, well, they tried to hit the target, but it was difficult because it was really far. But the first time that they hit it, they were happy. They went and picked up a chocolate from the box and they ate it. And they really, really loved it. And this time they were so eager to hit the target again because they really liked the chocolate and they wanted another one. But they kept failing because it was a difficult thing to do, to hit the target from so far for that age kids. And they grew more and more frustrated because they weren't able to hit the target. After a while, they saw that most of these kids found that because they were alone, they started to cheat. Because they realized that there's no one in the room, some of these kids crossed the line, came really close to the target and hit it from a very close distance and then picked up a chocolate and ate. Some other kids didn't even bother about that. They just went to the box and picked up a bunch of chocolates and ate all of them. So what the group did was they got a fresh bunch of kids, 10 new kids, again the same age category of 5 to 6 years old. This time around, when they took them to the room, they had put an empty chair at one side of the room, and they introduced the kids like as if someone was sitting on that chair. Hey, meet John, this is John. John is invisible, so you can't see him or you can't hear him, but he's waving, he's saying hi, so say hi. And so the kids went, hi John. All right, and then they explained the rule to them, and one by one they left the kid alone in the room and went away and let the kids play. Now what they saw is just like the last time. The kids, when they hit the target the first time, were really excited, went and picked up a chocolate, ate it, really loved it, and then came back and started getting frustrated now because the second or third time they weren't able to hit it. But the difference they saw this time around is that most of these kids, because they thought that someone was watching, someone was in the room who also knew the rules, they saw that most of these kids did not cheat. They only ate the chocolate from the box only when they could hit the target. Now there were a few rebels, they still went to the chair, tried to feel whether there was really a John or not, and realized that if they can't get into trouble, picked up a chocolate, looked at the chair and see if they get any reaction or if something's happening, and still cheated. But most of them did not. Now, what does that tell us about human beings? It looks like human beings tend to behave much, much better when we think that someone is watching. Now, that's the argument that most of the people will tell you that don't believe in God, that this was a lie created years ago, just so that human beings behave themselves better, right? So you could come up with a bunch of laws and a bunch of rules, but no one is going to follow that as long as they think that someone is watching. Now, logically, that makes a lot of sense, isn't it? That, yes, that is true. I mean, even if you think of yourself, if you think that someone is watching, you are typically in your best behavior. But if you look on the other side there, right, there is another a documentary on Nat Geo that talks about ancient civilizations and how each of these civilizations had their literature and doctrines, and each of these civilizations had mentioned about a god that had created them, a god that was all-knowing and all-powerful. You think of any civilization, you talk about the Mayans, the Persians, the Romans, the Indians, everyone had a mention of someone supernatural, someone all-knowing, all-powerful. Now, if the argument is that everyone came up with this concept of God just so that they can control human beings better, because it is understood now that human beings tend to behave better. The thing is, it was thousands of years ago, and these are hundreds of different civilizations spread across the world. How come all of these people thought of the same solution, that let's tell a lie about there is a God? And even if it was a lie, there would have been so many conspiracy theories around that hey, you know what, years ago when that was told to you, I was there, I was there in that meeting, it was just a lie. We haven't heard of those kind of conspiracy theories. And it wasn't like everybody could, communicate with each other like we do now. There was no telephone, no email. Some of those civilizations probably didn't even know that there are other people that exist in the world. Much like how we think or wonder whether there are aliens, there have been these civilizations in history that probably didn't even know of other human beings on Earth. If that's the case, how come everybody thought of the same lie? How come everybody thought of the same solution to control all human beings? Doesn't add up, doesn't make sense, right? Well, nobody can tell you with proof either sides. We can go on, and it could take days and months to discuss the arguments that each side has about whether or not there is a God, right? But no one can literally come and prove to you that there is a God or that there isn't a God. Like, no person has real proof to show you either side of the argument. So here's an interesting experiment, all right? You must have heard of this 2x2 matrix, right? So this 2x2 matrix, let's just say on one side we write believe in God, and that could be either a yes or a no. Okay, on the other side, let's write God is real, and again say either a yes or a no. Whether God is real or not, no one can prove. So let's look at both the possibilities and see what the outcomes would be, right? Okay, so let's look at the first one now. So let's say you believe in God and God is real, which means that you fall in this quadrant here. What does that mean? Well, that's good. That's the best situation to be in, isn't it? So you believe in God, so you're happy, and there is a God, and he's happy that from all this chaos and confusion, you still continue to believe in him. And so both you and God are happy. Best situation to be in. Let's look at the next one. You believe in God and God is not real, which means you fall over here. What happens here? It just means that you live and die believing that there is a God, when in reality probably there isn't one. What's the harm in that though? Now people might say, well, it just means that you've been fooled and you just, believed in something that isn't even real. But then I would argue that that's not just true with the concept of God. I mean, that could be true in so many different things, that you get fooled into believing in something that isn't there. And like, ancient civilizations for years and years have passed by have believed in God, lived and died. And it's all, I mean, they've done okay, right? So I don't see a big problem in this. Let's look at the third one. So you don't believe in God and he does not exist, which means you fall in this quadrant. What does this mean? Again, perfectly fine to be in this quadrant because you don't believe in God. There isn't any God for him to even feel happy or sad about you not believing in him. So it's all hunky-dory. You don't believe in him, he's not real, all good. The last quadrant, you don't believe in God, but he's real, which means you fall in this quadrant. What does this mean though? That means that your whole life you've spent, lived and died believing that there is no God, but then there is one in reality. And when you find that out, probably sometime in your lifetime, or I don't know, maybe after you die, if it's to be believed anything around life after death, but someday, sometime, you come to know that that there is a God and God is real, and you've spent your whole life believing or not believing in him. According to me, this is not a very good quadrant to be in, isn't it? So I'd rather not, piss off someone who's supernatural, someone who's created me. I'd rather not piss them off at the end of the day and be in one of the other three quadrants, preferably in one of the other three quadrants. Right? Interesting exercise. Now, I'm not trying to influence you to either believe in God or not. That's not the intent of this video. You probably are in one of these quadrants already, and if that's the case, that's totally fine. If you're confused about whether you want to believe in God or not, maybe this quadrant can give you some perspective in terms of whether you should be believing in him or not, and what could the possible consequences be. I mean, this is a very, very practical way of looking at it. There is no emotional investment in this piece where you're trying to argue the fact that there is a God or there isn't a God. You're just looking at all the possibilities and seeing where you could end up with if you took a certain decision. All right. Okay, so I hope this helps you and helps you take a decision that you think you will be happy with, because that's the most important thing. I think at the end of the day, if you've taken a decision on whether to believe in God or not, it's something that you should be convinced about and you should be happy about. All right. Great. I make videos on personal growth and personal finance. So if you like these kind of videos, please subscribe to my channel, like the video and comment. And as I always keep saying, race only against yourself, because then you will always win. See you in the next video.